All right, here at Frank Wade Park, we have this beautiful raised bed and we're going to start planting some things. So I'm going to go over here and we're going to start with planting some strawberry plants. So strawberry plants are perennials here. So the first thing I thought I would just sort of go over is that there's different kinds of plants. There's annuals, biennials, perennials, and of course big things like trees and shrubs, which are perennial. So we're going to put this strawberry plant here. If you see that the roots are very bound up and thick and matted, you'd want to take them apart. This is actually just perfectly fine. And you want to make sure you don't plant it any deeper than the top of the crown is now. Because it's just not healthy for the plant to have that area covered up with soil. One thing about strawberries, they are perennial. They send those runners out. And one of the things you want to do is you want to limit how many runners it sends, because the more runners that it sends, the more energy it's putting into green growth, not fruit production. So that's a little tip about strawberries. So annuals. Annuals are plants that live, they flower, they set fruit, they are finished in the course of one cycle or 1 year. And things like lettuces and things like, well, a lot of little ornamental flowers like pansies and alyssum, like, let's see, what else? Petunias. Petunias are annuals. They just need to be replaced every year. Then there's biennials. Biennials are plants that take 2 cycles or 2 years to become the finished fruiting plant. So interestingly enough, a carrot is a biennial. The first year it sets its root in and it grows a leafy top, like these are probably carrot tops here. And if you leave them in the ground and you don't harvest that carrot root, the next year you'll get flowers and you'll have carrot seeds. So that is a biennial. A perennial is like the strawberries that we just planted, which will live, it will flush new growth, make flowers, make fruit, and continue to do that cycle after cycle. Some things are shorter lived than others, but strawberries are pretty long lived around here. The next thing I want to do is plant some onions. And here we have onion sets. So onions are in fact perennial, but because we harvest them, they need to be replaced, because you're going to be taking that bulb out of the ground in order to get your onion. So I'm sorry, I've made a bit of a mess here, but there you have your starts. So what we're going to do is we're kind of going to separate them as gently as we can, like that. And we will plant that, and we will plant that, and each one should get at least probably 3 inches, 4 inches till the next one, so that you can get a nice big bulb growing. So there we go. Yeah, I have perennial onions in my garden because I have not harvested them. So I can guarantee you that they come back year after year if you don't dig them out. Chives. Chives are another thing that is perennial, and people only harvest the leaves and flowers for chives. So that's an example of one of the onion family that comes back year after year. Let's stop.
There we go.
All right, so we have planted our onions. We've got 2 rows here, and we're going to do something where we interplant. Onions are quite a long season plant. So we're going to interplant between the rows of onions something that's a very quick crop, which is a radish. Now this is going to mean that we should take a look at our packet. We have radish early harvest, And you want to be able to read what a packet will tell you. This says freshly packed for 2020, so that's the season that we're in. There's sowing recommendations, and it talks about sowing them directly into the garden. And it tells you the spacing. You want to have the plants spaced 1 to 2 inches apart, which is pretty close, so we can put them in pretty tight. This crop, I believe it says it is 22 days to maturity. That is one of those things that you really want to pay attention to. Some things are 40 days to maturity, some things are 60 days. Onions are up to 100 days to maturity if you do them from seed. So that's just something to take into consideration. Radishes are a great thing to plant with kids because they are an immediate kind of result. Within a couple weeks you'll see something coming up, so that's really fun. And they're easy to start. The seeds are pretty big, so they're not like a really fine seed. One of the things that I wanted to say too about doing this kind of project is that you can get your kids involved by having them help you plant and help you make labels. You should always have labels for your plants, so you know where to look for the plants you've seeded, because you may not remember. All right, so these are the seeds for the radishes, and we're going to direct seed. So there's 1, 2, I've got a bunch in there. I'm going to keep going along this little trench that we've made. There are little handy seed dispensers so that you can actually just dispense 1 or 2 seeds at a time, but we can try and make this work just manually. And after you've got your row, I'm going to go a little further down there. We're going to cover it over and we're going to make a second row. And yeah, this is a really good choice for a crop to do with your kids and have them help you making the labels and help you with all of it, like coming in afterwards and harvesting. Right, so we're going to cover the seeds. The general rule of thumb with seeds is that you only cover them just lightly. And there are even some seeds that require a complete uncovered so that they can germinate from the sun. Now what we're doing is we're direct seeding, which means we're seeding right into our raised bed. The other kind of seeding that's commonly done is sowing your seeds at home on a windowsill or in a greenhouse and then transplanting it. All right, here comes our bush bean. And looks like we have a couple of seeds in here. Let's take a look. Yeah, so looky here. How many starts do we have? Looks like we have about 5. So we're going to be gentle. I think this guy is going to be a sacrifice. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to plant those 2 in one go. And we're going to take this one that's kind of distorted and take it out and sacrifice it also. It's hard. As a gardener, it's really hard to get rid of plants, but sometimes it's really better if you thin to a healthy shoot that's coming up. All right, so there we have. Now the one exception to how deep you can plant things is tomatoes, and anybody who's grown tomatoes will probably know you can plant them as deep as you want, and it's actually good to plant them so that they're in and they'll send out roots from their stalks. Okay, so there's our 2 bush beans.